Have you ever heard of a ghost that could tell a real holy relic from a fake one? This isn't a setup for a joke. It's a real story from the 17th century, a tale that combines faith, skepticism, and the supernatural. Our story takes place in the vibrant city of Cologne, Germany, and revolves around a man named Adolphus, a respected canon of the cathedral. Adolphus was a man of deep faith, but he also had a secret. He was haunted. A spirit, which he believed to be the soul of a dear departed friend, followed him everywhere. This wasn't a malevolent haunting, though. It was more like having a constant, invisible companion who offered unsolicited advice. Imagine trying to go about your day with a ghost whispering in your ear. Annoying, right? Adolphus certainly thought so. One day, completely fed up, Adolphus decided to confront the spirit. He asked, "In the name of all that is holy, what do you want from me? Why won't you leave me in peace?" The spirit's reply was simple and unexpected. It said it was a soul from purgatory, tasked with following Adolphus to atone for its earthly sins. This only deepened the mystery. Why Adolphus? What was so special about him? The spirit's presence became a local legend. People were fascinated and a little scared. Among the curious was the papal nuncio, a high-ranking diplomat of the Pope himself, who was visiting Cologne at the time. The nuncio was a man of the world, not easily swayed by tales of ghosts and spirits. He was a skeptic, and he decided to put this so-called relic-detecting spirit to the test. The nuncio had in his possession two very special items. One was a reliquary, a small ornate box said to contain a piece of the true cross, one of the most sacred relics in Christianity. The other was an identical reliquary, beautifully crafted but completely empty. It was a clever forgery, designed to look just like the real thing. He presented both to Adolphus and his invisible companion. The nuncio, with a skeptical glint in his eye, challenged the spirit. "If you are truly a spirit with divine insight," he said, "tell us which of these contains the sacred wood." The room fell silent. Adolphus, probably feeling the pressure, relayed the question to the spirit. The spirit's response was immediate and dramatic. It caused the reliquary containing the actual relic to levitate. The small box rose from the table, hovered in mid-air, and gently spun before settling back down. The fake one remained perfectly still. The nuncio was stunned. He had come expecting to expose a fraud, but instead, he witnessed something he couldn't explain. He examined both boxes again, confirming that the one the spirit had moved was indeed the one holding the precious relic. This single event transformed the nuncio from a doubter into a believer. The story spread like wildfire, cementing the legend of the Cologne spirit. It wasn't just some random ghost. It was a spirit with a purpose, a supernatural authenticator of faith. But what happened to Adolphus and his spectral sidekick? The story goes that after this public demonstration, the spirit's task was complete. It had served its purpose, and its time in purgatory was fulfilled. It finally departed, leaving Adolphus in peace for the first time in years. This incredible tale from history leaves us with so many questions. Was it a genuine miracle, a clever trick, or a case of mass delusion? Whatever you believe, the story of the spirit that could identify holy relics remains one of the most peculiar and fascinating footnotes in the history of the supernatural. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, be sure to like and subscribe for more strange stories from the past. See you next time. Have you ever heard a story so chilling it makes you question what is real and what isn't? Today, we are diving into one of the most perplexing and well-documented cases of alleged demonic possession in modern history. The story of Anneliese Michel. This isn't just a tale from a horror movie. It's a real-life tragedy that unfolded in a quiet town in Germany in the 1970s. Anneliese was a bright, deeply religious young woman with her whole life ahead of her. But at 16, her life took a dark and terrifying turn. It started with a severe convulsion, and doctors diagnosed her with temporal lobe epilepsy. She was put on medication, but things only got worse. Anneliese began experiencing horrifying hallucinations while praying. She would see demonic faces, hear voices telling her she was damned, and she developed a severe aversion to religious objects like crucifixes and holy water. Imagine being a devout Catholic, and suddenly the very symbols of your faith cause you physical pain and revulsion. Anneliese's behavior became increasingly erratic. She would eat spiders and coal, bark like a dog for days, and self-inflict injuries. Her family watched in horror as the daughter they knew seemed to disappear, replaced by something else. The medications weren't working, and Anneliese herself became convinced she wasn't sick, but possessed. Desperate for a solution, her family turned to the church. After initially refusing, 2 priests were eventually granted permission by the local bishop to perform an exorcism. This is where the story takes an even more disturbing turn. Over the course of 10 months, 67 rites of exorcism were performed. The priests documented these sessions on audio tapes, capturing what they believed was evidence of multiple demonic entities speaking through Anneliese. These recordings are incredibly unsettling. On them, you can hear voices that are guttural, masculine, and completely unlike Anneliese's own. These voices would argue with each other, blaspheme, and identify themselves with names like Lucifer, Cain, Judas Iscariot, and even Adolf Hitler. They spoke in different languages and accents, creating a cacophony of evil that seemed to emanate from this one young woman. The priests believed they were battling a legion of demons for her soul. During this time, Anneliese refused to eat, believing that starving herself would help expel the demons. Her body wasted away. On July 1st, 1976, Anneliese Michel passed away from malnutrition and dehydration. She was only 23 years old and weighed just 68 pounds. Her last words to the priests were a plea for absolution, followed by a quiet thank you to her mother. The aftermath was a media storm. A legal battle ensued, and Anneliese's parents and the 2 priests were charged with negligent homicide. The court faced an impossible question. Was this a case of religious fanaticism that led to the neglect of a mentally ill woman? Or was it a genuine spiritual battle that ended in tragedy? The defense played the audio tapes in court, a move that shocked everyone present. Ultimately, the parents and priests were found guilty of manslaughter resulting from negligence and were sentenced to 6 months in prison, suspended with 3 years of probation. The court concluded that Anneliese's death could have been prevented had she been medically treated. To this day, the case of Anneliese Michel remains a source of intense debate. Was she a victim of severe, untreated mental and physical illness? Or was she truly possessed by malevolent forces beyond our comprehension? The audio recordings, with their multiple distinct voices, remain a chilling artifact that defies easy explanation. This story served as the inspiration for the film, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, but the reality is far more complex and heartbreaking. It's a stark reminder of the devastating intersection where faith, medicine, and the unexplained can collide. What do you think happened to Anneliese Michel? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most mysterious cases. Is the Vatican, the very heart of the Catholic Church, secretly harboring a demonic presence? This isn't the plot of a horror movie. It says a bone-chilling claim that came directly from an alleged demon during an exorcism performed by the Vatican's own chief exorcist, Father Gabriel Amorth. Father Amorth was a legendary figure, having performed tens of thousands of exorcisms over his long career. He wasn't one for sensationalism. He was a serious, dedicated priest who documented his battles against what he believed were forces of pure evil. One of his most famous and unsettling cases involved a young Italian woman. During a particularly intense session, the demon possessing her began to speak, not in her voice, but in a deep, guttural tone that sent shivers down the spines of everyone present. When Father Amherst demanded to know its name and origin, the entity's response was shocking. It didn't just claim to be a high-ranking demon, it boasted of its power and influence. Then came the bombshell. With a voice filled with arrogance and malice, the demon declared, through the woman's lips, that it had been inside the Vatican itself. It spoke of a struggle, a battle for the soul of the Church, happening right under the Pope's nose. Imagine the scene: a small, consecrated room, a priest chanting prayers, and a voice from another realm claiming to have infiltrated the holiest place on earth. Father Amherst, a man who had seen almost everything, was deeply disturbed by this revelation. He took it as a terrifying confirmation of his long-held belief that evil was not just an abstract concept, but an active, intelligent force working to corrupt humanity from within its most sacred institutions. This wasn't a one-off claim. Throughout his ministry, Father Amherst repeatedly warned about what he called smoke of Satan entering the Vatican. He spoke of corruption, power struggles, and a spiritual sickness that he believed could only be explained by demonic influence. He alleged that this influence was present even among members of the clergy, sowing discord and weakening the Church's moral authority. In his books, like An Exorcist Tells His Story, Father Amherst detailed these encounters. He described how demons would mock him, taunt him with secret knowledge, and try to break his faith. But this particular claim, that a demon had physically or spiritually resided within the Vatican's walls, was different. It wasn't just a threat. It was a declaration of victory, a boast that no place was truly safe from its reach. Critics, of course, offer other explanations. They point to psychological conditions, suggestibility, or even outright fabrication. They argue that the woman could have been echoing fears and rumors that were already circulating. Perhaps she was subconsciously aware of Father Amherst's own anxieties about the Church and simply mirrored them back to him in a dramatic, terrifying way. From a psychiatric perspective, conditions like dissociative identity disorder could manifest in such a manner, creating alternate personalities with their own narratives. But for Father Amherst and those who witnessed the event, the experience was profoundly real. They saw it as undeniable proof of a spiritual war being waged in the shadows. A demon's claim wasn't just a random outburst. It was a strategic move designed to instill fear and doubt. And in that, it certainly succeeded. The story became a dark legend, a cautionary tale whispered among the faithful. So, what are we to make of this? Was it the ravings of a disturbed individual? Or was it a genuine warning from the front lines of a spiritual battle, delivered by a man who dedicated his life to fighting the darkness? Whatever you believe, the story of the demon that claimed to have been in the Vatican serves as a chilling reminder that the line between faith and fear, and between our world and the unseen, can sometimes be terrifyingly thin. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating as I did, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's greatest mysteries. See you next time. Imagine you're an investigator, deep in a case that defies all logic. You're sitting across from someone or something that holds all the answers. The only problem? It speaks a language that's been dead for centuries. This isn't a Hollywood movie plot. This was the bizarre reality for a group of paranormal researchers in the late 1980s, when they encountered an entity that would only communicate in Latin. The story begins in a quiet, unassuming house in rural England, plagued by poltergeist activity. The family was terrified. Objects flew across rooms, strange whispers echoed in the halls, and a palpable sense of dread filled the air. Desperate, they called in a team of seasoned investigators. The team set up their equipment: DVP recorders, EMF meters, and cameras, hoping to capture concrete evidence. During one of their first evening sessions, they decided to try communicating. One of the lead investigators asked a simple question into the darkness. "Is anyone here with us?" They waited. Silence. Then, a faint, raspy whisper was captured on the recorder. When they played it back, they were stunned. It wasn't English. It was a clear, distinct phrase. "Quis me vocet? Who calls me?" This was the beginning of a weeks-long, mind-bending exchange. The entity, which they began to call the scholar, refused to speak any modern language. Every question they asked in English was met with a sophisticated, grammatically perfect Latin response. The investigators were stumped. None of them were fluent in Latin. They had to record the responses and rush them to a local university professor for translation. The process was slow and painstaking. They'd ask a question, wait for a Latin reply, and then wait another day or two for the professor's translation. The entity's answers were often cryptic and poetic. When asked its name, it replied, "Sum quod sum." I am what I am. When asked why it was in the house, it said, "Hic menebo in umbris." I will remain here in the shadows. It felt less like a conversation with a ghost and more like a philosophical debate with an ancient Roman scholar. The entity seemed intelligent, sometimes even arrogant. It would correct the investigators' clumsy attempts to ask questions in broken Latin, which the professor found both fascinating and unnerving. The entity claimed to be a guardian of the land the house was built on, a pre-Roman spirit bound to the place. The teen tried everything to get it to speak English. They pleaded, they reasoned, they even got a bit frustrated. At one point, an investigator asked, "Why won't you just speak our language?" The reply was chillingly direct. "Lingua vestra nova est et caduca, mi eterna." Your language is new and fleeting. Mine is eternal. After several weeks, the communication began to fade. The responses grew shorter, fainter, until one day there was only silence. The poltergeist activity ceased, and the house returned to normal. The investigators were left with hours of recordings, a stack of translated Latin phrases, and more questions than answers. What was this entity? Was it the spirit of an ancient Roman? A being from another dimension with a penchant for classical languages? Or was it something else entirely, toying with them for its own amusement? The case of the Latin-speaking entity remains one of the most perplexing and unique in the annals of paranormal research. It reminds us that when we try to communicate with the unknown, we can't always expect it to speak our language. Thanks for watching. If you have any theories about the scholar, drop them in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more dives into the unexplained. See you next time. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we re-diving into one of the most bizarre and intriguing cases of alleged demonic possession ever recorded. The story of Clara Germana Seal. This isn't just any spooky story. It involves claims of supernatural knowledge that seem to defy all logical explanation, specifically, hidden secrets of church history. Our story begins in 1906 in Natal, South Africa. Clara was a 16-year-old student at a mission school. By all accounts, she was a normal, pious girl. But that all changed, apparently, after she made a pact. Sources say she confessed to making a deal with a demonic entity. Soon after, her behavior took a drastic and terrifying turn. Witnesses, including nuns and priests at the mission, reported that Clara began speaking and understanding languages she had never learned, like French, German, and Polish. She would recoil violently at the sight of religious objects, and her strength became superhuman, sometimes requiring multiple people to restrain her. She was said to produce strange, animalistic sounds and could clairvoyantly reveal the sins and secrets of people she had never met. The accounts from that time are truly chilling, describing a young girl completely transformed into something else. But what makes Clara's case stand out from many others is the nature of the information she allegedly revealed during her episodes. During the exorcism rites, which were performed by two priests, Father Herner and Reverend Mansueti, Clara reportedly spoke about events and details from church history that she, a teenage girl in rural South Africa with a limited education, could not possibly have known. Imagine this: a girl who had likely never traveled far from her home suddenly starts discussing obscure theological debates from the early centuries of Christianity. She spoke about the lives and secret struggles of saints, detailed long-forgotten schisms within the church, and described specific architectural details of ancient cathedrals she had never seen. The priests were astounded. The knowledge was not just general. It was specific, nuanced, and accurate. It was as if she was accessing a hidden library of forbidden knowledge, information known only to dedicated historians or high-ranking theologians. The priests documented these events meticulously. They tested her, asking questions about church history that only a scholar would know, and she supposedly answered them correctly every time, all while in a state of torment. This wasn't just speaking in tongues. This was a display of profound historical gnosis. The entity possessing her seemed to be mocking the priests, using the church's own hidden history as a weapon against them. This particular detail is what has fascinated theologians and paranormal investigators for over a century. How could she know these things? The exorcism itself was a grueling ordeal, lasting for 2 days. According to the written accounts, the final moments were incredibly dramatic. Clara was said to have levitated nearly 5 feet in the air as the priests performed the final rites of deliverance. After it was over, the entity was expelled, and Clara was reportedly returned to her normal self, with no memory of the terrifying events that had just transpired. So, what do we make of the story of Clara Germana Seal? Was she truly possessed by an ancient entity with deep knowledge of human history? Or could there be a psychological explanation, like a dissociative identity disorder, combined with a remarkable case of cryptomnesia, where she had unconsciously absorbed this information from books or lectures? The details are so specific, and the eyewitness accounts so consistent, that it challenges even the most hardened skeptics. It remains one of history's most compelling and unsettling paranormal cases, forcing us to question the limits of our understanding. What do you think happened to Clara? Let me know your theories down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, make sure to like and subscribe for more mysteries. See you next time.